Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. Unshaved, unbathed, unedited, unscripted, uncouth, unflappable. Oh, think of some more later. Hope you're having a good morning. I'm going to discuss today an article by Keith Murphy on medium.com called Don't Blame Black Voters for Supporting Joe Biden. I've got some things to say about Joe Biden, but also about President Barack Obama. If you jump ahead in this article, I've got this. I'm going to disappear on you for a second. Don't panic. I'm still here. This is a quote from the article. Cory Booker took a swipe at Biden recently. And then Senator Cory Booker said, "You can't do it when it's convenient and dodge it when it's not." And so Keith is willing to admit that Biden is not a perfect candidate. And he's trying to say, though, that what really matters is beating President Trump. So what we're talking about here, he calls him Obeezy and Uncle Joe. When Obeezy and Uncle Joe entered the White House in January 2009, a time when the economy was in free fall and the United States was stuck in wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, he's talking about what Obama inherited, but I'm going to end with what Obama passed on to Donald Trump. He, like many Democrats of all colors and political persuasions or political factions within the Democratic Party and in various levels of socioeconomic status, he's saying it takes more than just being Obama's first mate to secure the African American vote or the Democratic vote in general. He says, like many Democrats say, it all comes down to beating Trump. And that's where he's wrong. His next two paragraphs are all completely wrong. If Warren, Sanders, or Harris showed and proved that they can take on the president, they might siphon black voters from the Biden camp. For the well-meaning, far-left, white progressive contingent looking to change the minds of African-American voters who view Joe Biden as the only option, here's a little advice. Prove that someone else can knock Trump on his ass, and that starts by not going after the record of the most popular Democrat alive today, Obama. And that's the problem. We have to get down to brass tacks about President Obama. In an article, this is actually from a book, the book Bernie or Bust, Pioneers of Electoral Revolt. Here's a quote from Kate Johnstone. She says, "The Democrats will try to offer us Andrew Cuomo. This will be unacceptable. If that falls flat, they'll try to offer us Elizabeth Warren. This will also be unacceptable. Warren will be another Obama, saying all the right things while selling America's lifeblood to the highest bidder and helping to deepen the chokehold of the Walmart economy. Despite her aptitude with Twitter and making viral videos wagging her finger at indifferent billionaires who will suffer no consequences for their crimes, Warren has wound up on the wrong side of every major progressive acid test she's been given, from Bernie, from not endorsing Bernie, to Dapple, to the DNC scandal, to Hillary's warmongering. She's another smooth-talking neoliberal and progressive's clothing, just like Obama was. Not acceptable." So if we're going to go on and talk about, I've had lots of discussions lately on Facebook with 20-somethings and 30-something Democrats who say they can't see why we can't have Elizabeth if all the combination of left people, if they fail to endorse Bernie, if they fail to give him the nomination, then why can't we have Elizabeth? Won't that be much better than having Donald Trump? And here you're falling into the lesser evil trap, the long-term effects of which are to keep moving us farther and farther right and farther away from justice. So the right has to go even farther than the right ever has been, just so the left will still be to their left. And that's what we've got with the lesser evil problem. So we have to stand up and say, Bernie or bust can already guarantee that you won't get just any Democrat, no matter who. The left flank of the left flank, the 20% of Bernie's voters will not vote for a Democrat, not even Elizabeth Warren. The recent Democratic Socialists of America resolution makes it clear, not even Elizabeth will do. Now, if you want to look at the Obama legacy, and I'm using an extension, I'm thinking by extension that if you see his legacy the way it really was, then by extension, you'll see that Elizabeth won't stand up to the big money any better than Barack Obama did. Here's a little checklist, and I call it my neoliberal checklist. This is Obama's legacy. He had an interventionist foreign policy spearheaded by Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. In his first 5 years, the United States exported $30 billion more in weapons to foreign governments than George W. Bush did in 8 years. He fueled unrest and violence in the Middle East. He did that. He didn't just inherit that. He did that. Obama bombed 7 foreign countries throughout his presidency, and he fully embraced the highly controversial use of drone strikes. He waged war on whistleblowers against his administration. In the Obama era, there have been 8 prosecutions under the 1917 Espionage Act, more now, more than double those under all previous presidents combined. He bailed out the big banks. He bailed out Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner, former Attorney General Eric Holder, and former District Office official Lanny Breuer, and they all make millions now working on behalf of Wall Street. Department of Justice official Lanny Breuer. Obama administration delayed, denied, and circumvented the Freedom of Information Act to unprecedented levels. That's supposedly a Republican thing, right? Dr. Cornel West said, Obama thrives on being in the middle. He has no backbone to fight for justice. He likes to be above the fray. But for those of us who are in the fray, there is a different sensibility. You have to choose which side you're on, and he doesn't want to do that. Obama's attitude is that of a neoliberal, and they rarely have solidarity with poor and working people. Whatever solidarity he does offer is just lip service to suffering, but he never makes it a priority to end that suffering. That's from a prominent African American. He also is a philosopher, a poet, brilliant mind, and he sees Barack Obama's legacy the way it is. Tim Black is another African American who, sorry for the redundancy, Tim, sees Obama's legacy for what it is. Standing Rock. He affirmed he supported Native Americans and their rights, but when the time came for him to stand up for them, he turned his back on them. On environmental issues and climate change, his promises and rhetoric have been nothing more than lip service. The National Park Service's maintenance backlog has increased under his presidency to $11.5 billion. In contrast to claims to push for clean and renewable energy, his administration has presided over the largest oil boom in American history, catalyzed by his decision to open up 59 million acres in the Gulf of Mexico to oil and gas drilling and increase the sales of leases for drilling on federal lands. Poverty rate is remained higher under Obama than in 2008. Income inequality increased throughout his presidency. Employment rate, even though it looks low, Robert Reich has shown us that it's actually higher if you account for the Americans who want to work but have dropped out of trying to find work, so they don't show up. The world's wealth doubled in 10 years since 2008, and nearly 99% of all that income has gone to the wealthiest 1% of Americans. It goes on and on. What the point I'll end with is that Donald Trump merely inherited the most awful things, including deportation, including the skirmishes at the border. That was all inherited. And as bad as Trump is, he didn't just start all that from scratch. He continued the Obama legacy. So if we're going to talk about the candidates we should get behind who are best situated to defeat Donald Trump, you have to remember that some of us aren't going to go with anyone other than Bernie, unless perhaps Tulsi, because she's also anti-war and pro-economic and environmental justice, big time. But she's not polling very high right now. So what we are assuming on the Bernie or Bust team is that there isn't anyone else who's going to cut it. And that means if you're one of those people who could vote for Biden or Kamala or Mayor Pete or Beto or any of those, or Elizabeth Warren, you won't be able to get them, because 20% of Berners who are pledged, this isn't me, but who are pledged to vote directly for Donald Trump, especially in swing states, you're not going to get anybody but Trump again. So we need to come to grips with that idea. See you next time.